The 2000s were quite the decade for Cartoon Network. While many will argue forever about what the network's best era was, this period has its fans. This was a decade that gave us classics like Billy and Mandy, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Ben 10, Samurai Jack, and many more. The shows during this decade had vast and colorful characters, and of course, memorable villains. They would come in all shapes and sizes, and range from typical bullies to aliens obsessed with world domination. But which of these villains are the most evil, and which one should find a better gig? Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Cartoon Network 2000's Villains, Evil to Most Evil. For this list, we'll be starting off with the least evil and then working our way down to the most ruthless and vile. Let's begin. At the bottom of our list, we have the Toiletnator from Codename Kids Next Door. Is this one really a surprise? If we were to summarize a Toiletnator in one word, it would be incompetent. The K&D never see him as a legitimate threat, and he can easily be disposed of. He is also disliked by many of the other villains in the series. As a matter of fact, he's defeated the villains more than he ever has the K&D. One memorable episode saw Toiletnator defeat all the members of Sector V in their treehouse. Unfortunately for him, it was later revealed that the villains had infiltrated the treehouse after the K&D were away, and he had defeated the villains disguised as them. Most of the other villains see him as annoying and a thorn in their side. He even loses the award for Best Toilet-Themed Villain to the character Potty Mouth. If you can't win being the best villain of your specific theme, can you make it on a list of villains in general? Next, hailing from the center of the earth, it's Nergal from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. For a character named after the Mesopotamian god of death, you'd probably expect someone a lot more evil. You're definitely not expecting someone in second to last place. Nergal has some evil doing under his belt. In his debut episode, Nergal takes Billy and Mandy away from Grim and forces them to be his friends for all eternity. Anytime they show disinterest in playing with him, he electrocutes them with his tendrils. Grim finally comes to his senses and tries to save them, but Nergal gives even the Grim Reaper some trouble. Only a kick in the shin from Mandy can stop Nergal from their reunion. That, for the most part, is where Nergal's iniquity ends. He's only interested in companionship, which he later finds in the form of Billy's Aunt Sis. After that, he's on much friendlier terms with our heroes. Even in later episodes where he's an antagonist, he's more like a rival than a villain. In conclusion, while Nergal is more than capable of being a villain, his lack of an evil goal forces him into second to last place. At least he's not lower than Toiletnator. Our next spot goes to another Billy and Mandy villain. Here, we have Boogie. Boogie is Grim's greatest opponent. The two went to school together, and Boogie often bullied Grim. He even attempted to cheat his way into becoming school president. These actions would have major ramifications on Grim's life. When Grim attempted to remove Boogie's ballots from the box, his friend Velma Green would see this and believe Grim was cheating. She would then try and get revenge for this years later. Boogie remains a pain in Grim's neck, even during his servitude to Billy and Mandy. He repeatedly tries to show that he's scarier than Grim, and will go to great lengths to do so. In the TV movie, he sets sail against the gang in an attempt to retrieve Horror's hand, a device that he believes will secure his place as the scariest monster. However, while Boogie can be a persistent foe, a scary monster he's not. His greatest fear is not being scary. He repeatedly fails to scare modern children, who he feels have become desensitized by TV, video games, and the tuba. While he's an enormous troublemaker, his history of failure cost him a higher ranking on this list. Besides, to paraphrase a quote from the Grim Reaper, nobody's scared of the boogeyman after they're 11. Endive from Chowder is our next pick. Fun fact, the real-world dish Endive is infamous for its bitter taste. Bitter is an apt word to describe this character. Endive, like Boogie before her, is a rival. She is Mung Dahl's foil in the same way her apprentice, Panini, is to Chowder. Unlike Boogie, who believes he's scarier than Grim but fails to ever prove it, Endive believes she's a better chef than Mung and has the resume to back it up. She constantly outdoes Mung Dahl when it comes to cooking, giving her quite the ego. Endive relishes the opportunity to make Mung's life miserable. She promises Mung and Chowder that she will give them a rare mood fruit in exchange for providing her labor. They do many chores throughout the episode, including peeling grow potatoes, which expand as time progresses. Endive even believes she's killed the two of them from this task, as they stop screaming for a while after they begin to peel. After all their toiling, Endive refuses to give them what they were after. She did it solely to torture them. Endive is also the first villain on this list to see no real consequences for her actions. She isn't defeated, nor is she reformed. She continues to live her life believing she's better than Mungdal, and there's little he can do to prove her wrong. A perfectionist to the core, this is one chef you don't want to get angry. Next, from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, we have Bendy. While this character only appeared in one episode, he made a large impression on viewers. Don't lie, you hated Bendy the first time you watched this episode. He's taken the Fosters after his family believes he's too much of a troublemaker around the house. After he makes himself acquainted to the Fosters gang, he proceeds to spend the rest of the episode framing them for his mischievous ways. When Blue and the rest explain to Harriman and Frankie that it was him, Bendy lies his way out of trouble and claims ignorance of any wrongdoing. After sucking up to characters like Frankie, he will then proceed to talk bad about them behind their backs. This indicates that he dislikes the entire cast. Prior villains in the list only focused on causing trouble for a select character or group. Bendy also receives no comeuppance for his troublemaking ways. At the end of the episode, Blue is still considered the troublemaker, and not Bendy. His failure to learn from his mischief, coupled with his disdain for the rest of the cast, earned him this spot on our list of villainy. We're taking a trip to Camp Leaky Lake for the next spot, which goes to Scoutmaster Lumpus from Camp Laszlo. Like a lot of previous entries, Lumpus is a jerk. He's rude to most of the cast, but there are two that get the brunt of his hatred. The first is Laszlo. He laughs at any misfortune that comes his way, like when Laszlo's ankle was broken by Edward. In the TV movie, Lumpus was only concerned about his whereabouts because he feared what his superiors would do to him if a camper went missing on his watch. The other character who Lumpus frequently causes trouble for is Slinkman, his assistant. Lumpus never pays him, and actually ended his career as a daredevil after sabotaging one of his jumps. One episode even had a moment where he attacked Slinkman with a salt shaker. He's usually only happy when he's ruining things for campers, like confiscating items which he then uses for his own amusement. Right now you're probably wondering, why is he this high on the list? He's evil, but is he really worse than someone like Bendy? He gets this spot for one major reason. He didn't make things rough for a group of kids or become a rival to a character, but he committed a crime that got him arrested. In the series finale, it's revealed that Lumpus wasn't the real Scoutmaster. Lumpus was actually just some guy who locked away the actual Scoutmaster and assumed his identity. For an entire summer, he supervised a bunch of children when he was not in the position to do so, and had a man locked away from the rest of society. He's the first villain on the list to get arrested, so that secures him this spot. This is one character to look out for. Otherwise, he might just assume your identity. We're going back to Foster's because our next spot goes to Her Royal Duchess, Diamond Persnickety, the first, last, and only. You can just call her Duchess for short. Duchess is a vain, imaginary friend. With an appearance based on the work of Picasso, she believes that she is a work of art, and not all others should bask in her presence. She loves being waited on hand and foot, and can't even wake up in the morning without needing someone to open her eyelids. Her greatest desire is to be adopted by a rich family. Any family that doesn't meet this criteria will instead be met with her insults. She has a narrow view of beauty and looks down on those who don't fit into that worldview. Even when she helped Eduardo in The Big Picture, it was only to give him a makeover similar to her own. Her dislike of the other Foster's residents is reciprocated, as she's hated by almost every other imaginary friend. She also has a major grudge against Blue, who stole her thunder. After this, she teamed up with Mac's older brother, Terrence. They kidnapped Blue and attempted to feed him to the Extremosaurs. Despite failing, she continues to make Blue's life a mess anytime the opportunity arises. She makes it this high on the list because she's the first character to try to kill another character. While other characters flirted with destroying their enemies, it is the first thing to come to her mind when Blue snatches a chance of being adopted from her. Even Boogie just started off as a bully. Overall, Duchess may see herself as a work of art, but we see her as a giant piece of work. Next is the delightful children from down the lane of Kids Next Door. The delightful children are a parent's idea of the perfect children, properly behaved, obedient, and quiet. They're easily one of the K&D's greatest enemies, appearing more than any other villain in the show. They've sent numerous minions and machines to destroy the K&D, and were responsible for number 1 being bald. One episode saw them try to destroy the Fountain of Youth, in an effort to stop anyone from becoming a kid again. The delightful children are also selfish. For each of their birthday parties, they invite guests to watch them eat cake. Nobody else is allowed to eat the cake other than them. While they've done plenty of evil actions, they're not that high on the list because they have a good side. There were several episodes that saw them team up with the K&D. They worked together after Father created a plan to force-feed broccoli to all the children in the world. Also, they weren't even evil in the first place. The delightful children were originally the operatives of Sector Z, until they were brainwashed by Father. Ultimately, their heroic moments keep these delightful children from securing a higher spot on the list. Regardless, they are cunning enemies, and definitely ones to watch out for. Moving on from one K&D villain to another, we have the pirate, Sticky Beard. Unlike other villains in the series, Sticky Beard is not out to destroy the K&D. Instead, he focuses his efforts on stealing their candy. He steals candy from various neighborhoods, but he sees the Kids Next Door as his greatest rivals, as they're the only ones who make any real attempt to stop him. Despite spending his days stealing from kids, Sticky Beard has redeeming qualities. He once saved them from the great asparagus monster, as he hates vegetables far more than he hates the Kids Next Door. He also has a rivalry with Number 5, who shares a great love of candy with them. He teamed up with her in Operation Licorice to save Heinrich von Marzipan, who was an old cabin boy on Sticky Beard's ship. He frequently tries to get her to join his crew, but she always turns him down. Despite his more heroic qualities, Sticky Beard is still a villain. Whenever the villains team up, Sticky Beard will be right there with them to take out the K&D. He was even nominated for Best Villain during their annual award ceremony, so that's gotta count for something. While our next choice is the protagonist of his own series, he's still a villain. It's Hector Con Carne from Evil Con Carne. From a young age, Hector was obsessed with domination. As a child, he conquered the sandbox at his school's playground and would even steal others' pets, holding them for ransom. His thirst for power continued into adulthood, where he became a rich playboy. Unfortunately, an explosion triggered by him destroyed his human body. He was kept alive after several of his vital organs were encased in the body of a circus bear named Boskov. Throughout the entire series, Hector makes many attempts to conquer Earth. One episode saw him trying to distract the citizens with pie. Another had him trying to freeze the Earth. Sadly, his schemes rarely, if ever, succeed. His attempt to freeze Earth saw the planet's gravity being disrupted. The episode Day of the Dreadbot focused on Hector creating a robot army that betrayed him. Even when his schemes aren't foiled by his own incompetence, they're instead stopped by the hero Cod Commando. Hector's wickedness is also set back by his bear body, which is, unsurprisingly, limited. One storyline had him planning for a large invasion, only for it to come undone by Boskov's hibernation. Boskov doesn't even have thumbs. Alright, we're talking a lot of smack about Hector, but he has a reason for being this high. He is persistent in his attempts to conquer Earth, and he will never let anyone stand in his way. Let's not forget that he's the head of a supervillain organization. Hector has tons of soldiers, weapons, and everything else one can assume a supervillain would have. Even when he fails, he still does a good job at making a mess of things. We can also assume that Hector has a body count from all of his attempts at world domination, making him the first character on the list to have done so. We believe that's more than enough to get him this spot. We're sailing to Stormalong Harbor for the next character, who is 8-Armed Willie from the Marvelous Misadventure of Flapjack. Willie isn't all evil. In his most major appearance, he gave the people of Stormalong his ink after they suffered an ink shortage. He's also nice to Flapjack. However, we think there's enough to justify him being this high on the list. For starters, he is the first villain to have a kill count, unlike Hector, who we assume has one. Prior to Flapjack, no other adventurer has ever lived to tell the tale of their encounter with him. He eats everything that comes into contact with him, whether it be adventurers, sea creatures, or candy. Sticky Beard isn't the only cartoon pirate with a penchant for candy. We also mentioned that, despite seeming to admire Flapjack, he will take him out if he needs to. Remember, 8-Arm Willie and Flapjack are both candy lovers determined to find Candied Island. It's no surprise that Willie would have a rivalry with Flapjack. Willie's role as the most dangerous creature in the 7 seas make him a prime candidate for being here. And P.S. If you want his ink, make sure you ask him first. He'll save you a lot of trouble. Our next entry takes us into the world of Ben 10 with the master magician, Hex. Hex, like many villains, is obsessed with accumulating power. Most of his appearances throughout the franchise focus on his attempts to gain more magic powers, which he will then use to rule the world. Nothing will stop him in these quests, and will put the lives of innocent civilians at risk. His debut episode saw him wreak havoc on a city using his sorcery. In addition to this, he's not exactly a great parental figure, something that will be a running theme in our later entries. His niece, Charmcaster, usually tags along with him, and the two frequently butt heads. Hex's complicated relationship with his niece tends to be his undoing, as there have been a few instances of her turning against him. He's arrogant too, which can also be his undoing. Ultimately, he's lower than other Ben 10 villains because he's not as evil as the rest. His first episode saw him defeated twice, with the second time being by a rock. He isn't on the same level of viciousness as the others, but his lack of regard for others and ruthless demeanor get him an entry this high on the list. The next slot goes to another Ben 10 villain. Here we have Dr. Anemo, a man of science. Aloysius Anemo seemed to have humble beginnings. He was a veterinarian scientist who sought out the Verities Award for his hard work. Ultimately, Anemo's methods were anything but humble. He held twisted experiments on animals which cost him the award. This drove Dr. Anemo to the brink of insanity, and he disappeared for several years. When he finally came back into the spotlight, he used a device called the Transmodulator to mutate animals into giant monster versions of themselves. He could also use the device to reanimate the cells of deceased animals, like prehistoric creatures. Aloysius did all this only to prove his genius and get revenge on the man who stole the award from him, Kelly. Anemo is ranked this high because of his dangerous ways. He treats all who oppose him horribly, whether they be an animal or human. He never grows and realizes his experiments were unethical, and as the show progresses, his experiments only become more dangerous. The episode Dr. Anemo and the Mutant Ray focused on him learning to create hybrids between Earth creatures and aliens. He even tried to create a device that would turn all of Earth's beings into hybrids. Dr. Anemo makes great use of his intelligence, making him one of Ben's fiercest enemies. Even though his plans always fail, he'll leave a path of destruction behind him. Anemo's easily the most cruel and heartless of the villains so far, and they don't get much nicer from here. Our next character debuted in Ben 10 Alien Force. It's Ben's foil, Albedo. As an equal to Ben, Albedo takes that role literally. In terms of appearance, he is a direct copy of Ben, alien powers and all. Albedo started off as a member of the Galvan species and assisted the creator of the Omnitrix, Asmuth. Albedo, however, craved the power of the Omnitrix for himself. Believing he wasn't right to wield its power, he fired Albedo, but his desire for the power of the Omnitrix didn't end. He created a copy of the Omnitrix, but after setting it to Ben's DNA, it turned him into an exact duplicate of Ben. Angered by his new form, he seeks out Ben to get the original Omnitrix, which he hopes will turn him back to his Galvan form. His efforts are repeatedly foiled, but he's always persistent in his ways. In the series finale, he goes as far as to team up with Vilgax to get the Omnitrix from Ben, which proves that he has no issue hanging out with the baddest there is. He continually seeks out ways of getting Ben's attention, whether it be attacking castles of the Forever Knights or capturing Gwen and Gavin. Albedo is an egotistical foe, and his obsession with making Ben's life miserable, all for the sake of power, put him this high on the list. The next spot goes to another Ben rival. This time, it's his original rival, Kevin Levin, an Osmosian. Kevin has the power to absorb energy and repeatedly made things tough for Ben in the original show. In general, he found pleasure in hurting others. In his debut episode, he and Ben go on a spree of troublemaking. While it started innocent enough, with stealing a video game, Kevin's true colors began to emerge when he rigged two trains to collide, which would have led to the deaths of hundreds had Ben not intervened. From that point on, he became one of Ben's greatest enemies. He's obsessed with trying to kill Ben, who he blames for turning him into a monstrous freak after he tried absorbing the Omnitrix. Like Albedo before him, he loves making messes for Ben to clean up, like when he went on a large crime spree using the Omnitrix's power in an attempt to frame him. Unlike Albedo, he doesn't just want his power or anything like that. He wants to take Ben out and teams up with Vilgax to destroy him. This also shows how different Kevin is from Albedo, as he was actually able to outsmart Vilgax, whereas Albedo wasn't. His ultimate goal following this is to destroy both Ben and Vilgax, who he sees as the two biggest obstacles in taking over Earth. These actions showcase Kevin as an unpredictable character. You never know what he's gonna do next, which is what makes him such an evil character. Next is the Goddess of Chaos, Eris, from Billy and Mandy. A lot of you are probably scratching your heads with confusion at this choice. She's definitely evil, but is she worse than someone like Kevin Levin? Well, it's our belief that there is enough to Eris that would make her one of the baddest of the bad. Let's not forget that Eris is the goddess of chaos and discord. Everything chaotic that happens in the show is her doing. This is made clear when her relationship with Haas Delgado prevents her from creating any chaos, leaving Earth in a state where anything chaotic is immediately reversed. With the world as chaotic as the one in Billy and Mandy, where characters die at the end of one episode and are immediately brought back the next, this more than cements her as one of the most evil villains in Cartoon Network's library. She's also directly responsible for the happy, huggy Stuffy Bears, which were used by her to turn children into zombies. In Chicken Ball Z, she turned Mandy into a fighting machine, which led to the building a fighting tournament was held in to be demolished in the process. Being the cause of everything destructive in the world, Eris easily secures this high of a spot on our list. We're down to the final 5. In 5th place, we have the Soul Collector, Damongo of Samurai Jack. Damongo is one of Aku's most trusted minions. Damongo is usually sent out by Aku to defeat warriors who pose a threat to his reign. Damongo has defeated all those who stand against him, and taken their souls as well. He eventually meets his match against Samurai Jack, but even that battle is a hard-fought one. Damongo is undoubtedly one of the most dangerous warriors Jack has ever faced. He already has plenty of experience killing warriors, and he uses their souls against Jack, quickly outnumbering him. Damongo also has an impressive body count in his hands, as the amount of warriors he throws at Jack seems to be endless. Damongo has no regard for the lives of others. To him, they are just another soul, ready to be added to his collection. Damongo is in 5th place because of his high body count, and his reputation as one of Aku's greatest employees. If you manage to please someone like Aku, you gotta be evil. 4th place goes to one of K&D's most dangerous villains, Father. Father is motivated by one thing: his unyielding hatred for children. He brainwashed his own kids, the Delightful Children, into being his obedient servants. In one storyline, he attempted to cook K&D operatives into a birthday cake, making him probably the first villain on our list who has cannibalism on his list of evildoing. Unlike the other K&D villains on this list, Father is always a threat to them. The other villains know this too. Whenever the various villains team up, Father always leads them. He's also one of the few villains in the show to win against the kids next door, as short-lived as those victories may have been. Operation Graduates focused on Father creating a device that turned all K&D operatives caught in its blast into animals. While his plan was thwarted after he was turned into a K&D operative, causing him to also turn into an animal, his defeat would lead to one of his greatest victories. Operation IT had him attend the annual K&D Game of Tag, where the last person who was it would become the leader of the kids next door. As he was technically an operative, he was able to become their leader. With a surprising history of victory, plus his evil ways, we couldn't help but give him 4th place. This is one Father you don't want to make mad. Who could be more evil than Father? Well, what about his own father? That's right, the bronze medal in villainy goes to Grandfather. While he only appeared in the TV movie Operation Zero, this senior citizen left an impression as the greatest villain the K&D had ever had to face. Grandfather was so evil, he was able to take control of the world on 2 different occasions. The first was in his younger years, where he was thwarted by his own son, Number Zero. Years later, the son he didn't care for, Father, recommissioned him into becoming Grandfather again. He quickly turned almost the entire world's population into mindless zombies, who only seek to create tapioca in factories he created. Grandfather also tries to destroy the Book of K&D, which he believes will finally rid the world of their presence. Only the reemergence of Number Zero can defeat him once and for all. Grandfather gets third place because he's the first villain to actually win against the heroes, and on more than one occasion. Grandfather also outdoes the other villains in the show. Not only does he do what they failed to do, but he also backstabs them and turns them into zombies. We haven't even mentioned how bad of a father figure he is. He put both of his sons to work in his tapioca factories when they were children. After father recommissions him, he has little love for his evil son. He sees him as a coward and is even more proud of the son that rebelled against him. That is why he gets our third place, and anyone who disagrees can get to work in the nearest tapioca factory. Next is a villain who has conquered 10 worlds and destroyed 5. Vilgax from Ben 10. Vilgax is the most dangerous villain Ben has ever faced. The first time they ever fought, Vilgax easily defeated him. As a conqueror of worlds, Vilgax is motivated by a desire for more and more power. He seeks the Omnitrix, which he wants to study the technology of, using it to create an army of transforming aliens ready to conquer the universe. Vilgax appears repeatedly throughout the Ben 10 franchise to try and take it from Ben. When he reappears, he challenges Ben to a fight where, if Ben were to lose, Vilgax would conquer the Earth. A failure to respond would give Vilgax the right to just destroy the planet. This fight also sees Vilgax come close to finally destroying Ben, as he shatters him in his chromostone form. Ben is quickly revived, but the fight shows that Vilgax is certainly capable of killing Ben, earning him the title of Ben's greatest enemy. While he will almost always fail in his quest for the Omnitrix, his reputation as one of the most dangerous and vile creatures in the universe cement his place at number 2. In our last 2 spots, we've seen a villain who has conquered Earth and a villain who has conquered almost a dozen. So clearly, to get first place, you would need to be someone who can conquer the universe. And that is what Aku of Samurai Jack does. Aku is the most evil villain in Cartoon Network history, not just the 2000s. Aku began as a mindless evil entity who existed in space. The likes of Odin, Ra, and other deities tried their best to destroy him, but a fragment of him made it to Earth. Even before he was Aku, he was crafty and powerful. Remember, we're talking about a guy who escaped the wrath of gods. While Aku was soon contained, he returned years later in an attempt to take over the world. Only one person could stand in his way, a samurai warrior who wielded a magic sword, the only thing capable of slaying the Shogun of Sorrow. Jack defeated Aku, but Aku created a portal to the future, sending Jack to a time where Aku is ruler supreme. By the time Jack arrives in the future, Aku's tyranny has even expanded to other planets. He controls the entire universe and goes to great lengths to destroy Jack. He'll send bounty hunters, destroy time portals, and even take him out himself if necessary. Aku is cruel too. He'll destroy those who fail him, and he cares little about whether or not the beings under his thumb feel safe. Aku is also one of the most powerful villains on this list. When the Scotsman tried to confront him, all it took was a quick laser blast to kill him. He doesn't need to throw a punch to take out his enemies. In conclusion, Aku is truly the ideal villain. He's ruthless, crafty, corrupt, heartless, and pretty funny. Alright, that's the list. What do you think? Let us know if you agree with our list, or if there are any villains we missed. Be sure to hit that notification bell and check out our Good to Evil playlist, where we look at the morality of all your favorite cartoon characters. But most importantly, stay wicked.